This program is intended for informational purposes only and does not contain medical advice. As always, please contact your physician or qualified healthcare provider with any questions regarding a medical condition.
When you go into a relationship from a place of not enough, you are instantly at odds with one another. You are instantly in competition with one another because the resources are scarce. There's not enough love to go around. There's not enough money to go around. There's not enough intimacy. There's just not enough. And so while social media might give you one pathway, getting back out in real life gives you a different pathway. And once it's there, you can't unknow it. You know that it's there. And so once you tap into that feeling, that palpable, tangible, heart-to-heart connection, even with perfect strangers, I think it moves you a little bit closer to being willing to do that with people intentionally.
You all, generally speaking, don't find value in emotional regulation.
Yes.
And you require us to do it for you. And we don't want to. Welcome to another episode of Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford. Today's guest is somebody that I have been so excited about talking to. I have been lightweight stalking her on Instagram for a couple of years now. I have watched her platform grow because she is brilliant, she is articulate, she is vulnerable, she's intelligent, she is all the things. She is a self-described trauma-informed mental health coach. She is a trained sociologist, and she is a college professor. Please welcome Dr. Shante Hawley. Hi, Mama. Hey, girl, hey.
This has been a long time coming.
It really has. And I just want to let you guys know, after seeing several videos that resonated with my spirit and my soul, seeing the commentary from all of the women, some of whom I follow, speaking up on how your rhetoric speaks to their soul and how seen and heard that they were, I had to slide into your DMs and invite you onto the show. I am so glad that you could make the time to be here.
I'm so glad you did.
Thank you. And I just want to jump right into it because I have all these questions and probably a bunch of other questions that we're just going to get into. So
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's get started. I believe that you are my second mental health professional that I've spoken to. This is my second season, and the first one that I had on was Dr. Judith Joseph, who wrote a book about high functioning depression.
Yes.
She was episode number 2. It was fantastic. It led to so much conversation about high functioning depression. A lot of people didn't even realize that that was an actual thing,
yeah.
And that was something that they possibly were suffering from. It encouraged a really incredible dialogue and a sense of awareness that people were looking for. They were looking for answers. Yeah. So I have been stalking you on Instagram for a really long time. I'm positive that it was one of your viral clips that came across my For You page, and I clicked on it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm following, and I reached out to you in your DMs. I was like, I'm a big fan. I'd really like to have you on my show. You came all the way from Chicago. We made this happen. So I just want to say I am so glad to have you here.
I am really excited to be here. I was like, here's the thing about when you do these videos on social media, it's like a crock pot for me. It's like I set it and forget it. And so I'm like, I'm going to record this. Whoever it's supposed to reach, it'll reach. But I can't like be attached to the outcome. So you never know where it's going to land.
Yeah.
And so when you reached out to me, I was like, what? So flattered and really excited to be here. I believe that we are going to have a wonderful discussion.
I do too. Just for all of you who, don't see what goes on behind the scenes. As soon as she walked through the door, by the way, we are back at the Spotify studios. I love this partnership that I have with Spotify because they gave me the big studio today for this very special guest. But the second that she walked through the door, I jumped up, gave her a hug. I was just so excited that you were able to make it. And this is really the realm of conversation that I really like to live in. You know, I really love to talk about the human experience,
Yep.
the human condition,
Yep.
what makes us so flawed, what makes us virtuous, and all the messy parts of us that we don't really start to appreciate until we get a little bit older, because we understand that that's what adds to our wholeness is our imperfections. And I think that that's also what leads to radical self-acceptance, is when we start to acknowledge those, you know, the shadow parts of ourselves that we now start to embrace and stop feeling guilty about. So that being said, in your bio, it says that you are a trauma-informed mental health coach. What does that mean?
What does that mean? I love this question because I get emails all the time and requests for coaching. And the first thing I tell people, I said, I want to make sure you understand the difference between counseling and coaching. Counseling is the unpacking. Counseling is the connecting of the dots. Counseling is about healing, understanding, and processing. And there is tremendous value in that. And some people are good with that because they're like, okay, now that I have nuance, now that I have perspective, now that I've been able to kind of reframe this and view this situation through a different lens, I feel better. And I feel like I can strengthen my relationships as a result. Coaching is, well, now that you know all of that, what would you like to do next? And
I think I need a coach.
girl,
Because
we
I
will
have
talk.
I have done all the counseling and I've done my best to implement all of the things that I've learned through counseling and therapy.
Yeah.
But you know, it's difficult to adult all the time and to be left up to your own devices, and you don't know what you don't know until you know it, kind of thing. So
Yep.
I'm glad that you made that distinction between counseling and coaching. So you are a coach.
I am a coach, and the trauma informed piece comes from. So before I got into mental health, believe it or not, I was into branding and marketing. And so what we now know as influencers, because there was this season where people were like, you know, I want to monetize my gifts and I want to build a platform. And so I used to coach people on how to do that, on how to build audience and all the things. And something that I started to notice was we have a sound strategy, you know, it's very rinse and repeat. All you have to do is execute. And they wouldn't execute.
Why?
That is a great question. I said, okay, is it the strategy? Do I need to go back and look at the curriculum? Because I'm a college professor too. So we're always examining the curriculum and seeing what we need to change and what we need to tweak. And in a long roundabout way, I realized that it wasn't anything that was tangible. Everything that was stopping them was right up in here. And so self-doubt, fear of success, fear of failure. And I'm like, okay, where is that coming from? Why are you telling yourself this story? And as I started to pull this thread, almost every single time it landed rooted in some form of childhood trauma, through some experience, through some parental criticism, through some schoolyard bully, through some traumatizing event that happened on the playground at school. And that message from third grade was still on a loop every time they tried to reach beyond what someone else told them was possible for them. And so as soon as they got there, boom, sabotage, procrastination, stall. And so I said, okay, let's pull back on the strategy a little bit. Let's talk about the trauma. And once we kind of navigate the trauma, then we can execute. And then that completely revolutionized the way that I teach. It completely revolutionized the way that I coach. It completely revolutionized the way that I do content, because the core nugget of all of the videos that I post on all of my social media platforms is some form of trauma.
You know, it's interesting that you refer to or mention the fact that when you peeled back the layers, when you pulled on the thread, almost always it was rooted in childhood trauma where they had received some form of criticism or, you know, some form of bullying.
Yeah.
And when I think about my mental health journey, what I love most about my therapist is that we construct these plans of action. to tackle certain issues. And boy, she's really great at this. But the latest thing that we have been focusing on, where a few years ago, if you'd said, Melyssa, inner child, focusing on inner child work, I would have been like, "Get the hell out of here with that
could
BS."
we not?
Like inner child, like, come on. And I was like, now I understand that we all have this inner child that suffered some kind of trauma. A lot of us, it was especially Gen Xers, we were abandoned. In not in the way where it was intentional. It was just both parents necessity. Both parents entered the workforce. It was a specific time in which women were fed a narrative of you can have everything. And to a certain point, women wanted that. They wanted to attain autonomy outside of the home. They wanted to attain more identifiers other than wife and mother, because
they wanted options.
And
some semblance of financial independence.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So what I was going to ask you is, what does a perfect client look like or sound like to you? Who do you love that comes to your practice and you just like to sink your teeth right into their situation?
Somebody who's ready to do the work. Because here's the thing. There's something called radical acceptance. And I give credit to Dr. Deb Gordon, who painted this really great illustration of radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is, so I'm from Chicago, so I'm going to use Chicago. We have a lake and a river. Everybody, we got a lake and a river, okay? Very beautiful city. So you're walking down the river walk. It's a beautiful day. You got on some white pants. You got on some nice shoes. And somebody comes out of the bike path and bumps you ever so slightly, but it's just enough to send you into the river. So now you are in the drink. You are splashing around. You're, oh my God, you're coughing and you're sputtering. And you're like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this happened to me. Like, can't you look where you're going? And you're right. You didn't deserve that. It was the other person's fault. They should have been looking where they were going. Your outfit is ruined. All of that. You are right on the money. But baby, you need to get out the water. And so when you have not reached a point of radical acceptance, you want to be right about being wronged. And a lot of people love to stay there. They love to stay in and this is what happened to me, and this is what they did, and this is what they said, and once upon a time, and in a land far away. And I'm like, you're right.
Victim mentality.
Absolutely right. But I need you to take the next step, because you are responsible for getting out of the water. And so my ideal client are people who are ready to get out of the water, who have accepted that the outfit is ruined, that the shoes ain't never going to be the same, that you may never get an apology from the person who drove past on the bike to say that they bumped you in the water. You may never get that, but you're ready to heal and you're ready to move forward. And so people who are ready to take on that step, and for the record, it does not absolve the other person of what they did. Yes, they did all of that. They said all of that. And those consequences are very real. At the same time, they can't be lasting if you want to move forward and do the healing work. And so that's my ideal client, people who are ready to get out of the water.
What are your thoughts on closure? That made me, why I ask you that is because when you were talking just now, and you're talking about people who express having been wronged and sitting in that self-victimization and that anger and not being able to move past it. What are your thoughts on closure? I feel like closure is just, it's a farce. Like it's a fable. You have to give closure to yourself, because you're not always going to get the closure from the person that you're hoping it would come from. You're not always going to get the apology that you feel like you deserve. That person might not even be able to acknowledge what they've done to you and the harm that they've caused. So what are your thoughts as a mental health professional on closure and how important it seems to be to people, specifically women? I really do not hear men talking about closure.
So closure for me, I think that closure, if we're thinking about it from the perspective of closure, requires the other party to come into this space and for us to be at peace. for us to have an understanding, for me to get some sort of apology or resolution. If we are defining closure in those terms, you're absolutely right. It is a farce, okay? But closure from the perspective of, so I'm going to date myself, we Gen X, right? So,
Yes.
okay, we can have this conversation. So one of my first jobs out of college was working in an office, and there were these metal file cabinets. These metal file cabinets, if one of the drawers was open, you could not open the other drawer. You had to close one drawer, hear the click, and then you could access the other drawer. That's how I think about closure, is that if you want to access the other parts of your life, if you want to access what's possible, if you want to access your future, you're going to need to close this drawer so that you can access those other pieces. And closure tends to be a farce for people who want to leave the drawer open until somebody comes in and says, I'm sorry, until somebody comes in and gives you the money they owe you, until somebody comes in and says, I was wrong for leaving your mama. That may never happen. That may never happen. But if you are willing to close the drawer till it clicks so that you can access those other pieces, I think that closure on your terms is absolutely possible.
All right, so Dr. Shante, I'm going to move on to something that everybody has either seen or participated in on social media.
Okay.
And that is the never-ending gender war. Boy, is it kicked up in the last couple of years.
It really has.
What it makes me wonder, and I'm going to play a clip that relates to your opinions on this, but what this makes me wonder is because how divisive it has made us. We focus solely on all of the differences, but as a mental health professional and a college professor, what would you say are the ways that we are more similar than we are different, that we don't focus on?
Okay.
That's the
question. So, ironically, I was having this conversation with my friend last night, and I said, America, in particular, is really good at deploying scarcity. It is amazing. And when I say scarcity, it's from the place of not enough, not good enough, not pretty enough, some semblance of not enough, right? And when you get on the flight, right? You're on the same flight, but not everybody's having the same experience, right? Because scarcity has been deployed. Oh no, you don't get this level of service. Oh no, you don't get these kinds of snacks. You are at this level, and certain benefits and certain packages and amenities are only available to people at a certain level, right? And so a lot of people come into these gender wars from the mindset of scarcity. What's that question? What do you bring to the table? It's like, people don't realize what a poverty-stricken question that is.
Oh my God. Is that what the kids are doing these days?
There we go, right? It's like what a poverty-stricken question that is, because that's not a question of abundance. That's not a question of possibilities. That is a question of, I got a few crumbs that I'm standing in the corner with, and I just want to make sure that I can protect my crumbs, and can you add to? And I don't want to be doing this type of work, and I don't want to be doing that type of work. And it's fascinating to me, because my bread and butter, so how I even came into education, was through sociology and just looking at human behavior and the study of people in groups. And so when you deploy scarcity, you have a lot of people that are coming into relationships from the mindset of not enough. And when you go into a relationship from a place of not enough, you are instantly at odds with one another. You are instantly in competition with one another, because the resources are scarce. There's not enough love to go around. There's not enough money to go around. There's not enough intimacy. There's just not enough. And so anybody that comes to any sort of potential love endeavor, enterprise, from a poverty-stricken, scarcity-laden mindset is doomed to fail. It's not going to work. And it's this, I'll even take it back further. Before we got to the, what do you bring to the table? Do you remember that saying, you complete me?
Of course, Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire.
And you know what? And you know what? To your point, that is a modern day fairy tale.
Yes.
We grew up as little girls watching Cinderella and Snow White and
Yes.
Beauty and the Beast, and it informed our ideas of the whole white knight and being rescued,
Yes.
and the enduring love for the rest of our lives by our Prince Charming and
Yes.
all this other crap. But Jerry Maguire, that is a modern day fairy tale, that whole "you complete me." And boy, did that upend our way of thinking. Understand that we're two halves looking for a whole. Right there
Yes.
is a significant problem.
Two broken people who are just searching for that perfect match, for the one. And I'm like, where are the conversations about wholeness? Okay, what are the conversations about I am a whole and complete being? And I ask people all the time, especially my clients, I said, who taught you how to love yourself? Who taught you how to love yourself? And let's talk about our parents. It's like, did your mother love herself? Where did you see that showing up? Where's the evidence? And people will tell you all day, well, my mama loved us because she sacrificed and she toiled. And my grandmother, she had these 10 kids and she toiled and she labored and she sacrificed and she scrimped and what have you.
Love is rooted in sacrifice and suffering.
Sacrifice, suffering, and scarcity, and not enough. And that in order for you to be worthy of it, okay, in order for you to be worthy of it, you have to be willing to lay yourself prostrate and give it all up. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not available for that. I'm not available for that.
That is not my ministry.
That is not my ministry. And so it's like, if that's what you believe love to be, help yourself. Because there are a lot of people who still believe that that's what love is. And come to find 5 years into it, 10 years into it, wait a minute, let me go back and look at the brochure, because this doesn't seem to be delivering all that was promised. And so as long as we believe that love is rooted in scarcity, love works best, okay, when two whole and healthy people, and you don't have to be fully healed. I mean, because, child, aren't we all working on, I'm still in therapy.
We are a constant work in progress until the day that our spirit leaves this physical husk.
There it is. Okay. So
and if you stop believing that you are a constant work in progress, well, that is the day that you die.
That is the day that you die. And so the thing is, instead of this investment in trying to be good enough for someone's approval and auditioning, like we have a spot in a Broadway play, it's like, did you ever stop to turn the mirror around and say, how much of this have I invested in myself? It's like, oh, I went and got myself a cute outfit. Did you get a cute outfit for yourself? Or are you trying to get somebody's gaze? Are you trying to get somebody's attention? It's like, oh, well, we go to that restaurant on special occasions. Aren't you the special occasion? Why is it not you? And so women that are coming to this place where they really are starting to love themselves at very high levels, because you teach people how to treat you based on how you treat yourself, okay, that are starting to love themselves at these very high levels, these are the ones that you see starting to opt out. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna exit stage left, and for all that I have accomplished, either in my education or in my career, or just being able to just treat myself as the honored guest. Okay, I treat myself as the honored guest. If you have a friend that is coming to visit for the weekend, you have washed the sheets, you done fluffed the pillows, you've made the guest room all nice, you've stocked the fridge. Where do you want to go, girl? You've planned it all out because she's the honored guest. How often do you do that for yourself? And so many of us have been led to believe that we, in and of ourselves, we're not worth that effort, that effort is only worth something if it is in service to somebody else.
You just gave me the phrase that I feel like I'm going to use moving forward. I am no longer auditioning.
No.
I've entered this space, and I think that it comes with perimenopause. Because
that's another show.
Girl, there's something that happens with the depletion of estrogen. Mm-hmm. What happens when the estrogen goes down, the veil comes up, and we start to question as women, what have I been living for? What have I been auditioning for? How have I been promoting myself? Mm-hmm. This male gaze concept, or the concept of centering men in our lives and understanding that's where society wanted me to exist. Mm-hmm. And and the acknowledgement that it no longer works for you. It no longer works for your sense of spirit, your soul, your concept of self-love, the person that you want to be, radical self-acceptance. It doesn't fit. It's not even that it doesn't work. It doesn't fit anymore. It's an ill fit.
But notice the hypocrisy in it. It's only a problem when women do it. Because what did George Clooney used to be? The most eligible bachelor.
Yes.
You know, and so for a man to get on in years and have acquired and achieved and become and still not be partnered, it was like, you know, that was swag. You know, it was like, wow. But when a woman does that.
Like Jennifer Aniston or Tracy Ellis Ross.
Selfish. What's wrong with them? It's like, oh, you're beautiful, you're successful, you know, you got a little money in your pocket and you still don't have a man. What's wrong with you? I'm like, why are we getting that question?
The double standard is infuriating.
It is. For anybody who has noticed this growing divide between men and women on social media, please know that is by design. That is intentional. You see women saying men are broken, they're unhealed, they ghost you, they don't call, they don't have conversation. And then you see all of this rhetoric from men saying like women are gold diggers and, you know, they're only good for one thing and life is harder for men than it is for women. Please know this is an intentional manipulation. That people are taking your pain points. Okay, so these content creators who have specific political interest, okay, and a specific political vested interest in keeping men and women at odds with one another are taking your pain, are taking your insecurities, are taking the difficulties that you're having, and they're exploiting them. And then they are fueling you with rhetoric and weaponizing your pain for their political ambitions. Here's what I will say, men or women, men especially, because you are absolutely specifically being targeted with this kind of content. Think about what you want. Think about the kind of man that you want to be and the kind of life that you want to have, separate and apart from what social media is telling you. Like literally get back into yourself, get back into your heart. Think about who you want to be for you, not what society is telling you want to be. And then see if what you are paying attention to or what is coming up in your algorithm is in alignment with the kind of man that you want to be. And if it isn't, turn it off. Ladies, same thing. If it isn't, turn it off. And get back out in real life, quote unquote, touch grass. Touch grass really just means go back out in real life and learn, okay? Learn, build the muscle of building healthy human social connections, not for romantic purposes, just for like conversation purposes, just for companionship and camaraderie purposes. It doesn't always have to be about love and sex and all of that. We just need to get back to understanding what it is to be face-to-face, heart-to-heart, human, compassionate, empathetic beings. That's the baseline, so that no matter what is being said on social media, we're not being harmed by it. That's all I got.
Okay. That was powerful.
Thank you.
From what you said there, it sounds like you believe that there is a concerted effort to indoctrinate specifically men to think a certain way that leads them further away from what could actually be happiness and partnership and community and fellowship, etc. Do you believe that there is an active campaign to do this, and do you think that it's specifically targeted to the Black community?
That's two different questions. So, do I think that there is an active, deliberate, intentional campaign? 100% I do. Okay, 100% I do. So the thing is, when you know how a lot of people will criticize Oprah Winfrey for going to Jeff Bezos's wedding or what have you, and they'll be like, "What?" And it's kind of like this. But I thought she was one of us. When you make a certain amount of money, when you're worth a certain amount of money, it doesn't work like that anymore.
It transcends race?
For us down here, no. But at those levels, when Ellen DeGeneres was sitting next to George W. Bush at some sporting event or whatever, she was like, "What? But I thought she was one of us." When you get to a certain tax bracket, Okay. The air up there is very different. The air up there is very different. And the things that we're concerned about at this tax bracket are not the things that they are concerned about at that tax bracket. And so there are people that are at these higher tax brackets. So the Peter Thiels and some of these other, multi-billionaire conglomerates, the tech bros, they control the narrative. They can shadow ban you. They can keep your content from being pushed, and they determine what content gets pushed. Okay. And so they have done so many studies and actual demonstrations where if you set up a TikTok right now and say that you are a 15-year-old white boy, within 15 minutes, the kind of messaging that you are going to get pushed is that red pill, incel, misogynistic rhetoric. It is like, ooh, we got ourselves a new one. So do I think that there's a deliberate actual campaign? Absolutely, positively. Charlie Kirk is going from college campus to college campus, okay, to get them while they're nice and young, okay, and bring them over to these right-wing politics. And that is amplified on social media by him and so many others in that space. For Black men in particular, let me walk softly through this pew.
I love that phrase.
Do I believe they are the intended audience? No, I do not believe they are the intended audience. But what do they say? The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yes.
And so it's like, but hey, brothers, if you're willing to come along for the ride, if that's one more vote, against these other interests, then absolutely. And the thing is,
So it's like inviting them to sit at the back of the bus.
that's exactly what it is.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'll say it.
That's exactly what it is.
Well, what you mentioned in that clip is you talk about touching grass, i.e., forming social connections in real time, in real life.
Yeah.
And you also, at some point in one of your clips, you talked about online dating and how one experience drove you off of the dating apps. Do you think that we're still in a position where we can learn to, or still, we're still in a position to actually know how to develop proper social connections, or is social media just driving that out of us and killing it?
I could be wrong, but I believe that everything reaches a tipping point in the same way that people are leaving dating apps in droves. Mark my words, social media is nearing its peak because people are tired of it. And for self-preservation purposes and for political organizing action purposes, people are going to get off of it. Because if you think about like how the civil rights movement, there was no Facebook. People were meeting in churches, okay, and they were meeting in school, in the basements of schools, and those types of places, because everything cannot be the revolution cannot be okay, y'all. So this is where we're going to be meeting. No, it was an underground railroad for a reason, and so I do think that for those purposes, people are going to start to get tired of it. But there's also these things where there's an artifice to social media. One of the things that people are finding out the hard way is that people use social media for what they think is connection. And it's like, but it leaves you empty. So if you've ever...
It's a false sense of intimacy.
It's a false sense of intimacy. It's a false sense of connection. And the thing is that it might give you a little bit of a dopamine hit, but with all drugs, once you've reached a certain period of satiation, you have to keep upping the ante and upping the ante. And there is no more. And so next thing you know, you've spent an hour scrolling and you're still dissatisfied. Somebody that I think is, but do I think we're past it? I don't. I recently participated in this and I was like, what just an absolute simply genius idea this was. So Uno, the card maker, has created social clubs in major cities. And so basically they rent out a space. They bring a crap ton of Uno cards and some Uno merch, and they set them out on tables and people just come in and play. That's it. And I went to the one in Chicago, and here's what warmed the cockles of my sociological heart was the fact that it wasn't just like all millennials and it wasn't all like Gen Xers or whatever. It was a very diverse mix of people across age demographics, across racial demographics. And Uno is one of those games, like it's not one of those complicated card games, it's like,
It's not spades.
girl, it's not spades, it's not bid whist, it's none of that. And it's accessible enough where people just came in and it was just like, hey, you want to play? And it didn't matter. It was like, oh, well, I came alone, or my friend is not here. And it was just like, let's just play the game. And there was so much, and that type of connection is very different than what you get on social media. Psychologically, it's very different. I'll give you an example. I'm sure you have had the experience where you have been in a room and somebody said something that was a little out there.
Oh
And
yeah, I might have been in a room where some out there things
where
are
some
said.
out there things are said, and somebody that you don't even know, you will lock eyes with that person and have a moment of recognition and understanding where it's like, okay, I saw that too. That sort of thing. Even that moment of brief human, actual, tangible connection, it does something to the brain that social media cannot replicate, that it cannot provide. So do I think that we are getting to a place where social media is always going to be the driver? No, because I think that people are coming off of it. And I believe that women are going to lead the charge. And I'll tell you why. So I think you mentioned like this male loneliness epidemic.
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, but the thing is, one of the reasons why women don't experience loneliness in the same way that men do is because women are community. Women have been socialized to create and to nurture. And when you think about women friendships and the way that women take care of one another in friendship, it's very different than how men interact with one another in friendship. And so women have the garden club and the book club and the knitting circle and all those things that happen heart to heart, eye to eye in real life. Women are the golden girls. They are the ones sitting around having the cheesecake and all the things. And I think that men have a ways to go in being able to develop that. Even Dr. Ramani, who is the expert in narcissism, she said one of the ways that men benefit from marriage that a lot of people don't think about is that when a couple gets married, the woman has the social circle. She has reached out to the parents and the friends and things like that. And so he just kind of hops on into that because he hasn't cultivated those relationships and he hasn't made those phone calls and he didn't plan the dinner that we're having on next Tuesday and that sort of thing. And so I think that social media is reaching its apex, and I think that women are going to be the ones that are going to be leading that charge off of the online space and doing more of that heart-to-heart connection.
I never thought of that. I've heard the statistics that men fare better in marriages than their single male counterparts, and women who are single and childless fare better health-wise than their married
Shout
female
out to the rich
counterparts.
aunties. Okay.
Shout out to the rich aunties, which I am one,
Okay.
and happily so.
There you go.
But I never thought about that being one of the layers, that one of the reasons that a man's health stays intact is because of the social connections that have been developed through his wife.
Correct.
Wow. That is incredible. So let me ask you an exercise that you would give to one of your clients.
Okay.
Let's just say you've got a client who they've just had too much exposure to social media. They are feeling insecure. They're feeling vulnerable. They're feeling like they just don't know how to go about making proper social connections. Maybe they feel a sense of rejection because of something that an attempt that they made and they were rebuffed. What's a checklist that you would give to somebody who wants to go about building social connections and might be having a difficult time?
Might be having a difficult time. So believe it or not, women love sports too. One of the reasons why I'm even here in New York is for the tennis open. And one of the things that I encourage people to do is to go to a sporting event by yourself. I did this. I wanted to see, we call it soccer, but everywhere else in the world they call it football. Okay. It's not the football that we understand it to be. It's football every place else. And but soccer here is not what it is in other countries. In other countries, it is
It's life.
It's life.
Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to experience that energy. And so on my last trip to London, I went to a West Ham game, and you talk about human connection, right? That sense of just being invested in somebody else's success, and when the ball is moving down the field and the momentum, and then just the cheers, because you have noticed this. Even if you've gone to a game, somebody's like, "Hey girl, you got an extra ticket," and you just went along for the ride. But when the team is winning, what do you see happen to people? High fives and
everybody's
hugs and
hugging.
everything. People you don't even know,
Yeah.
right? And it just reminds you that human connection is possible. And you're like, yeah, even, or not a sporting event, something that's a lower price point. So COVID really put a lot of people off of going to the movies because, the movies were in the living room and that sort of thing, right? But oh, Sinners. So when Sinners came out in March, I saw it by myself. There's a scene near the end of the movie. So I'm in a theater full of people, and the clapping, the applause, people like, hell yeah, that sort of thing. And those moments, like, did you feel that too? You did feel it too. Because I think that when you have been kind of inundated and rebuffed with like all of this negativity and all of these messages and things like that, what you need are tangible reminders that another reality exists. That another reality exists, because the example I use all the time is, like I said, you can be on the same plane, but you can be having a different experience, right? And so you and I can be on the same app and have a complete, and people will say like, what side of TikTok are you on? Because I'm not on that side. What side of Instagram are you on? Because I never see the stuff that you see, right? And so when that's all we see, we think that that's all that there is. But when you come off of that, not from a, would somebody like to join me for a drink? And the reason why I say something like a movie or something like a sporting event, because that's very different than like a dinner at a restaurant. A dinner at a restaurant, people are there to eat their own food. And I think that you can get reminded that you're sitting here solo while other people are connecting and talking and chatting and all the things. But when you go to something like a tennis match, okay, and you're just there to like just see the sport, an individual who is fighting to win, overcoming obstacles in real time. I saw Coco Gauff play last night. First round, something that should have just been easy peasy lemon squeezy. Her opponent took her to the mat, okay, and she lived to fight another day, and just the all of that, okay, you feel it. You collectively feel it with a group of people.
It's palpable.
It's palpable. And you realize there's a pulse here that does not exist on the telephone. And I think the more that we get out into those types of spaces where life is happening, okay, we're more inclined to put our phone down. So case in point, at the Uno Social Club, playing cards and things like that, you think anybody was on their phone?
Nobody was recording, capturing selfies. Look where I am at this moment. This is lit.
There was no clout. There was no content. There was just, oh, you draw for it on me? It was like reverse back to you. It was that mess talking. And then, people like, oh, we're not playing by the special rules. We're not stacking. Look, can we just play a straightforward game of cards, okay? But it wasn't about what was on the phone. And then next thing you know, hours have passed and you're like, and now your brain, here's the beauty about the brain. Your brain, the neuroplasticity of it, it is always willing to have a new experience with something. It is always willing to create another pathway of understanding. And so while social media might give you one pathway, getting back out in real life gives you a different pathway. And once it's there, you can't unknow it. You know that it's there. And so once you tap into that feeling, that palpable, tangible, heart-to-heart connection, even with perfect strangers, I think it moves you a little bit closer to being willing to do that with people intentionally.
So I want to go back to the concept of relationship experts on social media. I'm sure that there is a few of them that the second you see them on your For You page or wherever they pop up, you're instantly just like, oh, Lord Jesus,
Here
just
we
take
go.
the wheel. Here we go.
Here we go.
There's a few of them that are very prolific. One being Derek Jackson. he's very controversial for so many reasons. You know, he had his own little scandal after he had gained an immense amount of popularity. And he is accused quite often of pandering to women to profit off of their emotions and their vulnerabilities. But I will say this.
Okay.
After watching quite a few of his videos, he's not wrong a lot of the time. I wanted to get your thoughts on these IG relationship experts, specifically the men whose content is geared towards women and the accusations that are made against them in terms of you're just pandering, you don't really believe what you're saying, and women, you're also gullible, you suck this stuff up, hook, line, and sinker. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
So I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the patriarchy at work. From the perspective of sociologically, people tend to respond differently to a message that comes from a man than a message that comes from a woman.
You don't say.
Yeah. And so because I've known many women to be like, did I not say those exact words? Did I not? Let me scroll back in the text message thread because I'm pretty sure I can send you screenshots almost verbatim of conversations we have had that seem to just dissolve into the ether. And yet when brother man says it, all of a sudden, yeah, that's good. What? I've seen this in the church. A woman and her children accept the invitation and go down the aisle, and people are like, praise the Lord. But let a couple of men walk down that aisle. Here come the tambourine, the choir start singing, and the organs start jamming, and it's like,
Is that why
what?
they want a medal for like loading the dishwasher? Is that what it is? Is that why when it comes to, let's just say you cohabitate with a man, maybe it's your husband, maybe it's not, and he starts to participate in doing, you know, the chores that have to get done in a household, and he wants acknowledgement for having actually done some housework. Is that where that comes from?
Yeah. Or the father that's pushing the stroller, got the baby bag on his shoulder.
It's like,
oh my gosh, like they're such a good dad. But this woman who also was pushing the stroller and had the diaper bag.
Well, that's just the expectation of
there
what
it
you're
is.
supposed to do.
There it is. So a lot of these IG relationship experts, the men that are doing this, they are benefiting, okay, from the patriarchal system where when these messages come from their voice, okay, it's like it resonates in a way that it doesn't when women say these things. And in terms of, are the words that you say aligned with the actions that you take, right? So I think that there gets a point where people have to be discerning, right? And it's almost kind of like, does that matter to you, right? Like, does that matter to you? So like, case in point.
Meaning, like, is it the message that's more important or the messenger who's saying it?
Is it the message or the messenger that's more important to you?
Sometimes that gets a little convoluted.
It gets convoluted and muddy, even politically right now. So Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. It's
Right?
complicated.
It's complicated,
it's
right?
as layered as a tiramisu.
But is he taking the fight to the, is he taking it, and that sort of thing? And right now people are so thirsty for a
Some
little
kind of
action, some sort of resistance,
and
some
also
sort
a
of
sense of morality.
a sense of morality.
There's a very specific and loud delineation between right and wrong.
Yes.
And we know what wrong is.
Yes.
We know what evil is.
Yes.
We need to see what is right and what is good.
What is right and what is good. And so when you have traditional leadership that are sending strongly worded letters and making strongly worded public statements, people are like, that is not, versus somebody like Gavin who's like, okay, I'll be petty. Okay, two can play that game. Is Gavin Yeah, so it's convoluted,
It's,
right?
it's the message and messenger.
It's the message and the messenger. And so when we talk about like these relationship experts on IG and what have you, can you filter that out, right, for yourself, sift that out for yourself? Because the thing is that somebody can say something that resonates and makes sense, and we can even talk about, rest his soul, Kevin Samuels, same thing. Like there were people that were like, he's so misogynistic and he's so problematic and he's so, this, that, and the third. But then there were other people that are like, well, yes, that is true. And okay, and so it's like both and so August Wilson, the famous playwright, he has this phrase where sometimes you have to take the crookeds with the straights, and I think that sometimes in these relational dissipations of advice, you are taking the crookeds with the straights at the same time. But the women who reinforce, because that has to be said too, there are women who reinforce the patriarchy.
Oh, absolutely. I call them gender traitors.
That girl, you just be cutting right to
Sorry.
it. Okay.
I
But
do. I call them gender traitors.
so there are women that reinforce the patriarchies. There are many ways to do it. So there are women who reinforce the patriarchy in the way that they raise their daughters and coddle their sons, where the expectations of work and excellence and achievement are very different from what the girls are expected to do versus what their sons are expected to do.
I heard a phrase recently, we raise our girls, we love our boys.
Correct. Correct. And
this is what has contributed to the male loneliness epidemic.
but it's not just male loneliness.
One of the major factors in the male loneliness epidemic is that particular part. Girls who have been raised to be high achieving
Yep.
and self-sufficient and that sort of thing, where boys have been loved to the point of codependency. So how do these two people meet and have anything in common with each other in terms of what they're looking for in terms of long-term partnership, which is where I want to go next.
Long-term partnership. And this is something that I have said, and people, now I am a mother, and I will just say, I'm like, don't shoot the messenger. But in my generation, the advice about dating was, you better keep your legs closed. Don't be bringing no babies in this house. It was like, okay, that is that it? That's it. And then, okay, so you manage to get through your teenage years and you don't have a child. And then, you get to college, you get some education and what have you. And then once you graduate, it's like, so when you going to get married?
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't have any experience. And so the expectation is that two people who don't have any experience are somehow supposed to come together and make magic happen just because I like you and you like me? What? And in what world does that work? But meanwhile, speaking of the patriarchy, the guys, they didn't get that same message. Well, here's where you can find the protection. Make sure you wrap it up and that sort of thing. But going out there and sow your royal oats. And it's like, yeah. Okay, so there are women that reinforce the patriarchy as well. And it's like, as long as you continue to do that, as long as you continue to be a willing ear, an audience, what is that term? I hate this term. Is it pick-me's?
Yes.
Like, as long as you're willing to be the pick-me, like oh, I'm listening to you. Did you see me? Like, girl, this ain't the 5 heartbeats. And, you're not sitting in the front row like, oh, could you, look at me and, give me some attention. As long as there is that, they're going to continue to thrive. Okay. Because it's not men who are fueling their coffers. It's women.
Mm-hmm. And that's because we were fed a steady, healthy diet of fairy tales.
Correct.
And then, like you said, grow up, self-sufficiency, pursue higher education. But now is the point in which you go looking for the husband. When are we going to get some grandbabies, et cetera, et cetera? You created a reel in which you started talking about the fact that there is all of this attention paid towards finding a mate,
Yes.
getting married.
Yes.
The whole process is focused around getting the
acquisition.
The acquisition, which is rooted in ego and a whole bunch of other things.
And capitalism too.
In capitalism. But there is no focus on how to develop a successful long-term partnership, what that looks like.
Of being.
Of being, exactly. So what are we not taught in all of the fairy tales that we watch growing up in terms of successful long-term partnership?
In terms of successful long-term partnership, I think one of the things that we are not taught is that you need to develop a healthy, strong, robust, loving, iron fucking clad relationship with yourself. That the extent to which you love yourself and how you treat yourself and how you talk about yourself. Because I have many friends who I love dearly, but there's one or two where it's just like, I hate my arms. I hate my stomach. I hate that. You see this? I hate, it's just daily picking themselves apart, okay, from this place of not enough, scarcity, and what have you. And I'm like, you have no idea how problematic that is. And so when you don't love yourself, when you don't have radical self-acceptance, when somebody finally sees you, it's like, what? Despite all my imperfections, despite all my flaws, and I'm so grateful, to have been chosen, without any conversation about what it means to choose yourself. And there's this, and I grew up in the church, and the church, many churches, I don't want to say all churches, okay, but many churches reinforce this idea of suffering as virtuous, right? You got to suffer. You got to bear your burden in the heat of the day, right? And and you got to be a soldier, right? And so when you come up with that indoctrination, okay, and then things like, God hates divorce, and that sort of thing, that means that when I'm being mistreated, when I'm being disrespected, when I'm being disregarded, when I am being used as a resource instead of loved as a person, well, there's virtue in that. I'm earning my stripes. I'm doing what grandmama used to do. What?
Grandmama, she had a whole diary that you did not know about,
Honey,
where she wrote down all of the feelings, emotions, and thoughts that she had about the mistreatment that she was experiencing, but you just never knew. Because she wanted to make everything look like it was okay. And she also wanted your granddad to, help him save face.
Help him save face. And there's a whole different franchise of a family across town, or you're going to school with classmates where y'all got the same daddy, but y'all can't have that conversation. And so that's the part of the fairy tale. Like when you talk about that fairy tale, this notion that you have to suffer, that you have to endure. Anytime I have ever made a post or a reel about divorce, or here's even better, this idea of the broken home. Being in a loveless marriage for the sake of the children is a special kind of hell. It is a special kind of hell because we have this idea that a broken home is one where both parents have gone their separate ways. I'm like, do you know that you can be in a broken home and both parents are sitting right there?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
There's a lot of times through my lengthy therapy journey, we have delved into every single aspect of, my whole life and the things that I witnessed when I was a child in those formative years where I was, where my brain was developing and forming concepts that would inform the rest of my decisions as I've gotten older. Still, that 6-year-old brain just still informing the decisions that I make as an adult and not being aware of that.
Yep.
And I lived that experience. I lived the experience of two people who really should not have been around each other anymore. They should have divorced. And what it resulted in was me feeling abandoned because they wanted to be away from each other, which meant that they were away from me. What it resulted in was it formed my idea as to what marriage looked and sounded like, which was loud fights, arguments, and physical violence. And what it did was it scarred me for life. And it took me a long time to realize it. And it also created in me a sense of survival.
Yeah.
Like fight or flight.
Yep.
And how much I employed these tactics for the purpose of self-preservation, completely unaware that I was doing it. It's only been through therapy that I discovered it. Through therapy, I discovered that there was a sense of emotional unavailability in me that I was never aware of, even in my quest to find partnership. I didn't realize how emotionally unavailable I was at times because I was unhealed, and I had never been able to acknowledge these particular things in my life that had happened and how they had affected me so profoundly. And it makes me think how many people are walking around thinking, I want partnership, I want a mate, I want a long-term relationship, but they're unaware of how unavailable they actually are.
That is so powerful and so real. I recently, so Threads is Instagram's version of Twitter, or their iteration of Twitter, or what have you, or X. See, look at me dating myself. I can, it's like the Sears Tower in Chicago. Like, they call it something else now, and I'm like, no, that's the Sears Tower. Okay. But it's their version of Twitter. And I maybe about a month and a half ago, I posted this thread. I said, I would like to hear from the men on this. I
have that
said,
saved too.
what did you have to unlearn in order to be in a healthy relationship with your partner? Like, what advice did you have to disregard? What did you have to unlearn in order to be in a healthy relationship?
I want to play that clip.
Okay.
I want to play that clip because the answers blew me away. What I loved most about the answers, and I feel like the answers were so profound from men. They were so thoughtful and profound because there was a certain degree of anonymity in giving these answers. I
Right.
mean, unless you know these people, by their handle, then you don't know who
You don't
this
know.
person is. So it's just like with that anonymity came that freedom to express a thought that came from something very, very deep rooted.
Yes.
And that is what I found to be so profound. The radical honesty, the things that women want to hear men actually say.
Yep.
It wasn't, I'll play the clip, but I just have to say, it wasn't rhetoric that is expressed when their male friends are around and they're afraid of ridicule, or they feel the need to be validated by their male friends, which is a whole other ball of wax and conversation that I want to kind of get to.
For sure.
But I want to play this clip because you read off some of the answers, and I thought that they were just incredible.
I recently posted a thread that said, "Men only, please." I'm deeply curious about men who struggle to form healthy, emotionally connected relationships. Not in a judgmental way, but in a what's really going on beneath the surface way. Why do some men respond to opportunities for healthy connection with avoidance, manipulation, harm, lying, or ghosting, instead of developing the skill sets for intimacy, repair, and connection? Before I share some of these answers with you, why am I asking these questions? Because social media is full of opinions and hot takes about what one side thinks another side is thinking. And there aren't a lot of healthy conversations. I think a lot of people show up kind of like locked and loaded with their ammunition and ready to kind of like fire off their triggers and experiences. But if more of us are willing to engage from a healthy place of curiosity, to be curious and not committed to preconceived notions, I think there's something to be learned there. So let me share some of these answers with you. Often we are socialized to equate vulnerability with weakness. Therefore, we duck and dodge meaningful connecting in service of being protected. But it is only from a position of strength that you can be vulnerable. Many of us don't have the emotional maturity to seek that vulnerability with those that we care for the most for fear of being hurt. For me personally, it's unhealed, unhealthy trauma mixed with loneliness. The two things compete with one another. It took me months to realize I am absolutely not ready to date. Before this realization, I was subjecting people to my unhealed self, and that was wrong. Therapy has helped me tremendously, not in being ready to date, but firmly understanding I'm not ready to date. When you don't know what intimacy and connection feels like, how could it ever be perceived as being worth the effort? Lots of the other answers are good. I'd add that an element of self-hatred can complicate things, a sort of, I cannot respect anyone who would love the real me. Very true. How could you love me? I don't even love me. In the past, I've been guilty of this. I'll show you the version of me that would deserve your love can be a trap if it comes from a place of dishonesty. And lastly, dismissive avoidance towards intimacy is embedded in our programming. Emotional regulation can feel burdensome and easily avoided by distance. As to your question about why men don't develop skill sets, I think you have to think outside of the context of womanhood, which thrives on those skills. Manhood does not. It's like asking why men don't open the door and exit the patriarchy. I wish more women understood the exits that are obvious to women are invisible to many men. And I say all this to say, let's keep having conversations rather than making condemnations, because I think that the mutual exchange of experience can help bridge the gap in understanding one another.
Okay.
Hello.
That last one, what he acknowledges, I want to go back to it. Dismissive avoidance towards intimacy is embedded in our programming. Emotional regulation feels burdensome and easily avoided by distance.
Yes.
As to your question about why men don't develop skill sets, I think you have to think outside of the context of womanhood, which thrives on those skills. Manhood does not. It's like asking why men don't open the door and exit the patriarchy, and he wishes more women understood that exits are obvious to women and are invisible to many men. Holy crap.
That was a mic drop moment.
My God, who is this man that wrote this? Because I want to have a conversation. You, sir, should have a mic in front of you.
I said,
okay, you, sir, are allowed to order a microphone from Amazon.
Sir.
Okay? Because I love how thoughtful and layered that response was. And I would have loved to have seen how many men responded to what he said. Not even in a verbal response or a written response, but just said, oh, preach. That's us. That's me. Could acknowledge and see themselves inside of this answer. The emotional regulation thing is what's most is the thing that really held me in awe of that answer. And one of the reasons is, I don't know if you watched that series Adolescence on Netflix. Girl.
Winner, chicken dinner.
There's so many things about that series that was so formidable.
Yeah.
From a cinematography standpoint, the single shot was it's very difficult to do. So
superb.
there's that. And because it's just, that adds to the drama and the suspense.
Yeah.
And you just wondering and feeling like you're present. So, but that aside, I'm a little bit of a cinephile.
Love that girl.
Episode number 4. This is what I don't think a lot of people saw. No, you did.
Yes.
But I don't know if a lot of people realized what they were witnessing. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but episode 4 is about the focus of the family.
Yes.
So episode 1 is about the crime. And episode 2 is focused on the school environment. How did this happen? Do these two kids know each other? What are their friend groups like? Do their friend groups overlap?
Yeah.
And what did the teachers have to say? The third episode's devoted to the psychologist and the kid. And boy, was that chilling.
Powerful.
That was chilling. But the 4th episode is devoted to the family, because this is also an environment in which this child came up.
Yep.
And you can clearly see that this family loves each other. The mother, the father, they have their qualms and whatnot, but they love each other.
Yeah.
And there's a son and a daughter. The daughter's older. And these two parents were forced to ask themselves, how did we raise her and him in the same household with such wildly different outcomes? We raise girls, we love boys. That's it. But here's the other thing that I saw. Obviously, because of what happened to their son, there was so much vitriol, towards the family.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure happens to a lot of the families and parents and mothers of school shooters and mass shooters.
Absolutely.
Sue Klebold has an episode on of TED Talks, and if you haven't seen it, you gotta see it. It's on YouTube. It was maybe like a decade ago, but she was one of the mothers of the Columbine killers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just fascinating. But the thing that I saw when watching that episode was The father's reaction to the graffiti on the truck and the accusations, the accusatory glances from the neighbors, and how furious he was. Undoubtedly so.
Yeah.
And understandably so.
Yeah.
But his anger, he acted on, and how much he automatically, instinctively, without question, depended on his wife and his daughter to regulate his emotions. They have their own big feelings and emotions. It's her brother that has been charged with murder. It's her son that has been charged with murder. But they can't act out their big feelings and emotions because they have to care for him and they have to regulate his emotions, a 50-year-old man.
Yep.
And this paints a picture as to how the son could possibly have started going down that path. Not saying anything about the father being,
Violent,
ill-equipped
abusive,
or whatever,
yeah.
or abuse, whatever the case is. I'm sure he's a great father, but there's certain things that you teach your children and you may not even know that you're doing so. And I don't think that what men understand when women are saying, I am opting out, the emotional labor is too much for me.
Yep.
That is what we're talking about, is that you all, generally speaking, don't find value in emotional regulation.
Yes.
And you require us to do it for you. And we don't want to, because we're adults here. And it's hard work to do it for yourself.
But he talks about his programming. He says that's not part of our programming. Men are programmed for excess. Okay. That more is more. And so when they flip the table over or they have like some big reaction, it's like, yeah, like that, what do they say? It gets the people going, it gets the people going. But when women have that type of response, oh my God, what is wrong with her? Like,
she's crazy.
is she on her medication? Like, what's going on?
Are you on your period?
Like,
listen, you're lucky that we don't go out and. All right.
It's like I'm gonna get you,
right.
sucker.
Right.
But so women, I'll put it like this, I also have a video which is about a completely separate thing about systems of privilege, right? White male anger and that sort of thing. And here's the thing about systems of privilege. The privilege is what makes you weak because there is a severe lack of accountability. There's no accountability when you are in the privileged group. But when you're not in the privileged group, you have to dot your I's. You have to cross your T's. You have to make sure, like, remember back in the George Floyd days, so that's when everybody had their kind of like moment of, okay, let's let's look at ourselves and like really see if we can just turn the page, right? So at my college, we had this event about teaching while Black. And it was like, please just be unfiltered, just tell us, because I work at a predominantly white college. I said, please know that one of the first things that Black children learn is to not make white people uncomfortable. That is one of the first things so when we come into these predominantly white environments, we are very aware you can't be uncomfortable. And so that means that certain conversations can't come up, that certain, the way that we address certain things has to be done with kid gloves, because there will be a weaponizing of tears, like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that to me, that sort of thing. And then next thing you know, the aggressor becomes the victim. And it's like, wait a minute, how did this script get flipped? Like, what is going on? And getting back to your point, where men are concerned, think about how many children grew up in households where it's like, that upsets your father. Don't do that. Don't say that. And it's like the mood of the household was dictated by what dad was going to do and how dad was going to feel. And was he ruling with an iron fist? And did he have his drink? And did he have his slippers? And or did you leave that thing that was in the middle of the floor, what have you? And it's like, and so even in the household, that sort of emotional regulation and the labor of that has been outsourced, because they're going to make sure that I have a good day. They're going to make sure, that I'm happy. They're going to make sure that, I'm content and at peace. And so because it's been outsourced for so long, because there's been somebody that's willing to kind of come along and do that work, a lot of men, when they get challenged with, okay, well, you need to regulate your emotions, he used a great word. It's burdensome. I haven't developed that muscle. Because see, when you first go to the gym, it's hard. Your back hurts. You're sore the next day. But if you keep going, eventually you get stronger, even though the weight does not get lighter. But women have been doing that work their whole lives. And so we are much more adept at lifting that weight because we've had to do it for so long. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. A lot of times I like to make this analogy as to our emotional abilities. Women are incredibly efficient. Our brains are like a 6-lane highway, paved, brand new, painted lines and stuff like that. Just boom, 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 boom.
All the
Men,
time.
single lane dirt road with a horse and carriage on it.
It can't be that bad.
Well,
You're like, I'm just calling a spade
if the
a
stirrup
spade.
fits,
Okay.
if the saddle fits, honey.
Fair.
But you mentioned the word, the use of the word burdensome by him was to me, it was very specific.
Very specific.
And again, I loved his honesty. But you mentioned the word accountability. Boy, do I see a lot of men throwing that word around on social media. Women don't know how to be accountable. And you know what I have realized from scouring through thousands of comment sections under thousands of posts related to this gender war BS? I believe that we have different ideas as to what accountability is, men and women. And I think that we're thinking about two different things when we accuse the other of not being accountable.
Yeah.
In your practice, what are the general ways each gender avoids accountability?
It's really interesting. So I did a podcast episode a couple of years ago about the catalyst for it was what I would find would be one of many, but Kanye West's kind of spiral. Part of that is part and parcel to his mental health challenges. But the other part is, okay, because we could also use Diddy, who, I'm not going to diagnose him. I'll just say, has not publicly said that I have some sort of bipolarity or what have you. I said, when I talk about accountability, most women I know, not to say all, but most women I know have no problem holding other women accountable. If you see your friend doing some stuff, saying some stuff, a woman, well, I'm dating myself, will tap you on the shoulder and be like,
Girl.
your slip is hanging. Like, what you doing? Friend?
You better tuck that crazy back in.
There it is. Sometimes people see things and be like, and women will be like, where are her friends? Because
Right.
that's not how we roll. Like, we just not. But when I ask men and have had conversations with men, I'm like, you gonna talk to your boy? Your brother seem to be out there. That ain't none of my business. What I look like telling another man about his business. And I'm like,
sorry. I hear this stuff all the time. I hear this stuff all the time. I said, y'all are crazy.
It's like,
y'all don't want to save each other.
And I'm like, what? And that's the difference, is that I'm telling you that your slip is hanging because I care about your quality of life, and I know that this ain't gonna go up how you think. Okay, I've already thought about the outcomes, and I'm just trying to reel you back in. Now, you can listen or not listen, but you cannot say that you were not told. Many men are not invested in the outcome of their friends in the same way, and so the chips fall where they may. It's like, well, and there it is. And
He's
I'm
a
like,
grown-ass man.
he's a
That was his
grown man.
decision to be made. And that blows my mind. And I've seen it. I've heard it in conversations that I find myself in with men. That has always been very strange to me and jarring to me, that men don't have that same desire to acknowledge when their friend is acting in a wayward fashion.
In a wayward
and that
fashion.
is the That is the most delicate way that I can put it. Another conversation that is happening amongst women who are starting to see the forest for the trees, and the veil is starting to be lifted, and they're starting to decenter men, and they're starting to opt out of dating, and whatever the case is. Another thing that they're speaking up about is how much it appears that men's main objective when speaking on anything, talking to women, existing, is for the validation of other men, which is so strange to women because it's kind of like, but aren't you trying to be with us? So what does their opinions actually matter? So I say the question I have here on my card is, can we talk about how much men go looking for validation in one another at the expense of their relationships with women, or even the acknowledgement of some of their boys who may exhibit predatory behavior, and then making comments like, well, I've never seen that kind of behavior from him before. Yeah, but you've heard the things that he's had to say. You've heard the way that he addresses women. You hear the way in which he talks about how he treats women. You know that you would never let this person around your sister, your wife, your girlfriend, your mom, your auntie, your grandmother, but yet you don't feel like telling him, brother, your slip is showing. You don't feel like you have to tell him. And I've just always wondered why that is within their friendship dynamics. The accountability that they don't hold, they don't force each other to hold within themselves.
So here's what I will say about women friendships. Women have a level of, and we joked about this earlier before the show, women have a level of intimacy with one another that men don't have because we are emotionally fluent in that way. And so we joked about the men who are calling one another saying, hey man, I just called to tell you good night. And their friends are like, what? What?
I've been loving that moment on
like,
TikTok. It's been
bro,
very funny.
because it's like, hey, we don't do that. That part of my emotional wheelhouse, that doesn't translate guy to guy. But the reason why I'm concerned and the reason why I will pull my friend to the side is because, like, girl, I love you and I want what's best for you. And you and I have a vested interest in making sure that you're okay. And it takes a lot of effort for guys to get to that level. Like even, what is his name? Michael B. Jordan. And I forget who the other actor is, but like he's a hugger. So I think there was like a couple of pictures, like, so him and Chadwick Boseman, they were just broed up, hugged or whatever. And then I think the one that Megan Good is married to,
Jonathan Majors.
There we go. Like
he's not a hugger.
Sorry. There we go. Like broed up, that sort of thing. And they had some pictures where they just looked a little too close for other people's comfort. And it was like,
oh, he is a hugger. Okay, my bad.
They were like, man, what you doing? That sort of thing. So it's like, there's a visceral response when men try to enter into that level of intimacy. It doesn't mean romantic intimacy. It doesn't mean sexual intimacy, but just even relational friendship intimacy with one another, that women, we can do that all the time. We can take a picture right after this thing, all hugged up like, hey girl, hey, and it's nothing. Okay. Nobody would think anything about it. And so when you talk about why isn't there this level of deep accountability? So the social consequences are different. And so when you talk about validation, I remember I used to ask my students, I'm like, so students, first day of college, how do you define success? It was around that time Drake had a song out, I want the money in the cars and the clothes and the hoes. I just want to be successful. That was the song, right? Money, cars or houses, women. Boom, boom, boom. That is the trifecta of masculinity for a lot of men. And so a lot of men have been indoctrinated to acquire. If you don't have X amount of money in your pocket, what kind of man are you? If you don't have a woman, okay, what kind of man are you? If you don't have, if you're not driving a certain type of vehicle or what have you, what kind of man are you? And so the focus is on what do you have instead of who are you? Who you be? Okay,
And
like,
what do you and also
what do you value?
I was going to say, what do you value? I was having a conversation with a group of men after I had been on a trip to LA, and there was a lot of things that happened on this trip. My podcast won an award. I was doing my impact work that really fed my spirit and my soul. But not only that, I was visiting with girlfriends who I hadn't seen in almost 3 years. And when I say that these women poured into me in a way that I didn't know I needed, I felt so full, just so full and so loved on. When I left LA, I couldn't the conversations I found myself in, I wanted to cry because they just gave me so much hope that I hadn't been feeling.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened was I had just come from an event and I looked so cute and I had a gorgeous ponytail, and you know that shit hurt. You know, my edges were like, help me, please,
Yes.
help me. And then there was also the ponytail itself, the weight. I look good. But I was literally like, as soon as we walk through the door, somebody take this ponytail down. I am dying. And so I put a pillow on the floor, sat on the pillow, had my jogging pants on, looking like a straight janitor. And my girlfriend sat up in the chair, legs. So I'm in between the legs, I'm her child. She about to, plait my hair. She's taking the ponytail down, and without question, without conversation, without any provocation or question from me, request, she started to massage my head. Once the ponytail was out, Lord Jesus, take the wheel, okay? And you know what I thought to myself? I said, as a woman, we are so lucky that we get to have this level of intimacy with each other, where I'm provided this level of love and comfort through action. And it not mean anything other than, I see you, sister, I see you suffering, and I don't want you to, and I know a way that will make you feel better.
Yeah.
And I said to the group of guys about this experience, I said, it made me feel so sorry for you that you don't have the ability to show each other comfort, not in rubbing each other's heads. Okay, maybe that might be a little over the top for y'all. But there's other ways to show your friend comfort and love and affection that doesn't require physical touching, that still warms your soul and makes you feel needed and loved on, that I think you all are deprived of. And in that way, it made me think to myself, there's a whole part of our humanness that you guys may not even know exists. And who's here to tell you and tell you that it's okay?
So, interestingly, again, things you just noticed, right? In a lot of ways, the church is a microcosm for a lot of things that just happen out in society. But one of the things I noticed is that growing up in church, a deacon, if his wife died, I'm not joking, within 3 to 6 months, he was remarried.
There was probably a line.
On the flip, when her husband died, if the deacon died, she never remarried. And so it was kind of like this running joke. I'm like, why is it that men, when they lose a spouse or whatever, are like right in line, for replacement or what have you? And the most cynical responses were, because he needs a nurse with a purse and he wants somebody to count his medication and, and all the things, make his doctor's appointments and fix his plate.
Wives.
Right. Fix his plate and what have you. But there's actually a study that looked into this very dynamic. And do you know what it was? It was, for a lot of men, a woman or that intimate relationship is the only place where he can have that thing that you just described. That thing where it's like, all right, baby, I got you. I'm gonna rub your neck and that sort of thing. Or where he can let his guard down and say all the things that he cannot say at work, at the game, with the boys, to the fellas, in these other spheres of society, but because she is the safe space. And so after having a safe space for 10, 20, 30 years, to be emotionally vulnerable and then not having it anymore, they could not stomach it. The thought of not being able to have that element of your humanity. Because to your point, you're like, I feel sorry for you that you guys don't have that. But then imagine having it and then never again. And so they were in a hurry to get it. But I want you to go to my Instagram again.
Okay.
And this one isn't a reel. Look for the picture of me with I'm wearing the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan gray shirt. Is probably within the past.
Oh, yep.
And it wasn't a reel, but it was these responses from these men that I think answers your question, because I was asking them, speaking to the programming, what did you have to unlearn in order to be in a healthy connection with your woman? And there are men in there that say, I had to stop with the male validation. Like it's something in there that says that. Can you find it?
I'm going to read. I
Please.
have it up because
Okay.
this was bookmarked as well.
Okay.
I have it up. So you pose the question as to what did you have to unlearn about male dynamics and just the existence of being a man once you entered into a relationship with a woman and you realized that to keep this woman, this shit was not going to fly.
Correct.
These were some of the responses. I had to unlearn that you can, quote unquote, you can never let them see you sweat, unquote. And that it's key to our relationship that I be vulnerable and open about my struggles and pain. I cannot tell you how many men I hear saying this old rhetoric BS. We're not allowed to be vulnerable. We're not allowed to express our emotions. That is BS. There is a lot of women that are begging you to open up and reveal these things about you. Yes, there are some females out there that will ridicule you for that, and that's not what they
your
want.
person.
Well, then that's not your person,
That's not your
and move
person.
on and just stop being such a fucking victim. I digress. I had to learn that arguments aren't meant to be won. It's not me versus my wife. It's the two of us versus the problem. I heard a woman ask the question, why do men confuse wisdom with war?
Come on.
Bars. And
Come
that
on.
that is basically what
Why?
he is saying, that I had to understand it was not war, it was wisdom.
It was wisdom.
My wife is not responsible for my personal happiness and or satisfaction in life. Wow. I have a friend who her and her husband 10 years in are starting to examine that path right now, because I think that most people go in, it's that whole two halves looking for a whole idea
Yes.
when it comes to marriage, that
Yes.
you complete me and that us being together, you are now you are solely responsible for
Responsible.
my happiness, and that is not true.
And
is
that's
not
a
true.
lot of work.
That is a lot of work, and both people will fail.
Absolutely.
We are human. We will fail at that. Continue on, he says, it's also not her responsibility for me to improve as a parent. Those roles require enough introspection from me to understand my own personal shortcomings and how to work around them. Men, understand, you are not babysitting your children. You are parenting them. So pick up 50% of the responsibilities. Sometimes you're 80, sometimes she's 20. Most
And
of the
vice
time
versa.
she's 80 and you're 20. But share the responsibility. You are not babysitting. Understand that. And that is me speaking on behalf of your wives who wanted to say this and they couldn't. Wow, so many things. The biggest thing probably was the insecurity driven by the expectation to control my partner. The need to protect just caused so much anxiety and inhibited my ability to trust my partner. Giving up control was the best unlearning I ever needed. Is that called King's syndrome, where men are feeling like, their obsession with women's submission and their control of women, the possession, the
There's a lot of
protection.
misunderstanding of that word, because a lot of men think that protection means control, and it's like, No. And they immediately see it as this like hierarchy, like it's me in charge of you. Like, this is a partnership. Okay. This is a merger. Okay. So any business merger, okay, when a company is acquired, it's not like I'm coming in here, to control and dominate. That's a takeover. But when we're talking about a merger, there are things that I have that I think are beneficial and have value, and there are things that you have that are beneficial and have value. And those things don't suddenly become invisible or diminished now that we're together. It's not rock, paper, scissors where it's like, okay, well, that's who you were, and now that doesn't have value anymore. And case in point, there were over 400 answers when I posted this on Threads, but guys were like, yeah, I had to let go that my wife is actually better with money than I am. But I was always taught, like, you're the man and you control the purse strings or what have you.
Don't let him have a gambling addiction. You screwed.
But him trying to fulfill that societal expectation when she was like, I
have a master's in economics, so maybe I should balance the checkbook.
There you have it. And he was like, yeah, and had to make peace with the fact that it did not make him less
of a man. In his eyes, and really, honestly, that's all that matters. How you view yourself in your eyes. Too many men are just like, well, what if my boys find out? Who cares?
So that's the next slide.
It is the next slide.
Okay.
However, I'm going to read this next one because this feeds into something else that I want to get into.
Okay.
Negging. Oh. Girl. So I'm going to read this last one because this feeds into the next line of questioning that I want to go into.
Okay.
One conscious choice I made was to never engage in any kind of public teasing or insulting of my wife or our relationship. Mm-hmm. This included showing any kind of agreements with comments, however jokey they were, like, oh, you know how wives are, or like playing into the whole ball and chain trope, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. You have a video in which you talk about a phrase called negging. Is that a term that you coined?
No, that's a real term. So if you're familiar with the word negate,
okay,
it comes from that same camp.
I did not know that. Yep. I did not know that. So for all you watching, it is not nagging, it is negging. Negging. This is one of your most viral clips, I believe. I think it had over like 1 million views. It had definitely had about 104,000 likes, over 25,000 shares, over 4,200 comments, most of them women, sharing their experiences with what you describe in this clip. So I'm going to play this, and then we're going to talk about how seen I felt after you expressed this. The way that you expressed this, I think that most women had been trying to figure out how to articulate this because this is something that the vast majority of us have experienced and just didn't have a word for it. We didn't have the vocabulary for it. And you also say there's a word for not having the vocabulary to express something.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a second, but I'm going to play this clip first.
Okay.
Last night I went on a walk with a friend. She and I were catching up. I hadn't seen her in a while. And she asked me about my love life, which I never talk about on this platform. But I thought this story was worthy of your consideration. I shared with her the experience that made me realize that dating apps were not for me. I had matched with this gentleman, and we were having an initial conversation, and he starts to ask me about my work. Now, because I know the scale of work that I do and the many accomplishments that has come with it, I really don't bring it up. I don't talk about it. I never lead with that. And so I keep it really general. I said, well, I'm an educator and I'm really passionate about mental health. And so he's like, oh, okay, this is great. What exactly do you teach? What level do you teach? And so I share that information, and the questions become more and more pointed to the point where I'm like, okay, we're having the work conversation. And so I provide a brief summary of the work that I do in terms of my career, my scholarship, and the platform that I have built on social media. And his response was, but can you cook a pot of greens? There's a word for this. Actually, there's a few words for this, but the word is called negging, not nagging, not N-A-G, N-E-G. Negging is backhanded compliments or seemingly playful compliments that are designed to take you down a peg, to put you in your place. And if I was a different woman, I could have laughed it off like, ha ha ha, you so crazy. But I'm not that woman. And so a few things crystallized for me in that moment. Number one, love would not find me in this manner. Number two, the work that I do puts me in rooms that I would not be able to leave him in unattended, lest he say something inappropriate and then have people questioning my judgment. And number three, I could not help but wonder, would you have asked a white woman this question? Would you have asked a white woman, can you cook a pot of greens? Which I can, by the way, but that's not the point, is it? It gave me some perspective about his perception of black women, of dating a black woman, and that regardless of what I accomplished in this life, that my value would always be tied to my output, my labor, and my service, my willingness to serve. And so I will leave you with this. Be wary of anybody who looks at all that you are and sees you as a resource to be used rather than a person to be loved.
Ma'am. Okay. So
The one time I talk about my love life on social media,
yeah.
yeah.
So what made this post so interesting and the response being so overwhelming?
Yeah.
I've experienced men knocking me down a post. Well, several pegs, I should say, not a post, pegs. And knowing all that I've accomplished, knowing my storied professional history. But what I also have gotten the feeling is that while the negging was directed to me, I was also the representative of every woman that has ever seemed unattainable to them. And that's why I experienced the negging tenfold.
Yep.
And that's what makes it particularly insidious. There's several things about that make it particularly insidious. The part of that video that I don't know if anybody had thought about that layer because it's so wafer thin. It's like tiramisu. There's so many layers to it that you can't even count them. But the layer that you acknowledged, that you said out loud, is what had the congregation roaring. Is that you would never feel comfortable leaving that man alone in a room without you being there to hear what he had to say because you couldn't trust what he would say.
There it is.
He would be that guy that would be describing you as the ball and chain and making all of these, references that undermine your humanness, your accomplishments, all that you are.
And isn't that part of the work that we just talked about?
It is an enormous part of the work that we talked about. And it's
about that regulating, how many wives reach across the table to grab their husband's hand like, honey.
Yeah.
Just to give him a little honey, like, okay, dial it back.
But also, what it also is attached to is the idea of this male loneliness epidemic. At the forefront of that is the conversation that men are being left behind. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that women are marching forward. Women are taking advantage of the fact that, we're able to have a level of autonomy and choice in the lives that we want to create for ourselves. And keep in mind, this is only a couple of generations in which this level of autonomy and this permissibility has even existed. It wasn't until 1976 women could have bank accounts and credit cards without written permission from their husbands or their fathers.
Correct.
There's so many rules and laws that existed that if you thought, oh, well, that must have been like 100 years ago. No, 40, 50 years ago. That's how long it is, how little time it has been since women have been able to examine and live fully examined lives without having to think about men's participation in our entire existence.
Yep.
So that to me was the most profound part of the experience that you outlined, and how many women felt seen and heard and understood by what you described, because they had experienced that. They had, wait a minute, so you mean to tell me that I spent all this time working on myself, developing my professional self, going out there, pursuing higher education, career oriented, goal driven. I now own my own house. I have my own investment personality. My level of achievement is,
And a purpose-driven platform. Like I don't do this for me. I do this for the people that watch and pay attention.
Exactly. And in one fell swoop, with one tiny question posed as if it's innocuous, but really it's incredibly insidious because of the hidden meaning behind your purpose for asking it, and your desire to knock that woman down a peg. I don't even know what my question is here, because I just felt so seen and so heard. But do men not understand that these are the ways in which women are now feeling like, you know what, I'm opting out. I've got my community of girlfriends. I have my career. I have my plants. I got my cats. I got my dog. I got my movies. I've got my social circles. I've got all this. It doesn't seem worth the effort.
Let me paint a picture of distinction for you. Please don't miss this point. Now, if that was a father-daughter dynamic, like, hey, my daughter has done this and this and this and that and that and that and that, and that sense of pride, like, look at my kid. It's interesting that men can be proud of their children, male or female, in that way, because it's an extension of you. The reflection is, you're a good dad. Okay, or look what a good job you did with your kids, or look how well they turned out, right? But when a woman, standalone, has those same accomplishments, separate and apart from daddy's influence or upbringing or anything like that, but can you cook a pot of greens? And it's like, it's as if my value has to be connected to, okay,
how I service you.
That is correct. How I service you. And the reason why I went viral, I think in part because not only were there lots of women, there were lots of white women. They were like, oh yeah, can you bake a cake? Can you do the laundry? It wouldn't have been a pot of greens, but they're like, we have had similarly coded questions about what our abilities are and how we're showing up in relationship. And we've talked earlier about the programming. It's like we're on the same earth, the same planet, same household, same families, right? But we're on different frequencies. And so somehow in your programming, it was, this is what women are worth. They are good status symbols because it shows that, you have the charisma and the machismo, to get a woman. Okay. Because, back in our day, it was all about how many phone numbers did you get, man? Like how many, like it was acquisition, right? Mm-hmm. So you have enough to get one, right? And then, okay, fertile, it's like, that's about my virility. So now I have kids. And so I'm checking the boxes of what masculinity is. And so when we're having conversations about a woman's accomplishments, what's that got to do with me? How do I benefit, from that, because my programming says this is where the value is. And I even had a gentleman in the comments say, well, maybe he was just trying to make sure he had the whole package, I was like,
are you the whole package? Are you the whole package?
But the whole package is, I can be all of these things and balance that with knowing how to fulfill domestic duties. And then there were guys that were like, I think you took that way too seriously. I think you overthought it. And I said, okay, pretend you had told me that, your son was about to be a Division I athlete and he had scouts coming out to look at him play and he got a real shot of making it to the pros. And I say, but can he change a tire? You think I'm joking? Does it land like a ha ha ha? If you get offended, is it fair for me to say, I think you overthought that? You went over the top. But I don't want to miss the last question I asked. I'm like, would you ask a white woman this question? Because misogynoir, okay, so misogyny that is specifically directed at Black women. There's a book, if you don't read another book for the rest of your breathing existence, Too Heavy a Yoke, Black Women and the Burden of Strength by Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. She talks about these archetypes that Black women tend to be reduced into, which are matriarch, martyr, mammy, and Jezebel.
Yes.
And so it's like, okay, well, if you're not sleeping with me, where's the value? If you're not going to be the mammy, where you saw a lot of people like, oh, Kamala, oh, Stacey Abrams, could you just, like the help, like, could you be that? Or I got to be the martyr where it's like, I just got to give it all up. So it's like, if you're not willing to sacrifice all, if you're not willing to, do the maternal labor, or you're not willing to bust it open, then it's like,
what's your use?
What is your use? And so when you see women in those reductive terms, okay, and here's the difference. So we want to go back to the intimacy. My friends, they know what I do. And every time, like, I kid you not, there's a group of women that are waiting for me to finish this interview because they're like, how did it go? Don't forget to tell us how it went. Let us see your outfit, like that sort of thing. Like, they're cheering for me. They are genuinely happy that my work has led here. And I don't think it's too much to ask that when you want somebody to spend the rest of their life with you, that you can't cheer for me. You can't be happy for me unless it has something to do with you. What does that say about you, brother?
And I want to be clear that not all men fall into that category. There are certain men. There are men out there that absolutely love,
champion, cheer.
Exactly.
Fawn Weaver's husband,
yes,
is right by her side.
Exactly. They love how accomplished and strong and driven and all the things that you are. They love it about you, and they don't have the expectations that you go home after it's all said and done and go make the pot of greens. Maybe you want to make the pot of greens. Maybe you do, and he's like, great. But if that's not the case, he doesn't undermine everything else about you because there's this one thing that he asked that you can do, and maybe you can or can't do it, but it doesn't change your worth or your worthiness. But there are men out there that value women as human beings, and not just how we service you or pleasure
not
you.
Not human doings, human beings.
There are men out there. The most successful men that I know are the ones that value women in their entirety. And also when they have companies, they employ women in the C-suites.
There we go.
Those are the most successful companies because we have different intentions and we have different ways of trying to cross the finish line and achieve our goals.
That's right.
Women are way more group oriented. We're way more like this is what the end goal looks like and this is how we get to it. We don't employ ego. We're not really committed to just titling and money. We want to achieve the goal. And the smartest men who are at the top of the totem, like, who own these companies and employ women in the executive level, C-suites and middle management, they totally understand that women are the ones that primarily get the job done and don't get distracted by individualistic achievement.
Yeah.
And so
it's also this thing, because we've talked a lot about how there's this rhetoric about how men are falling behind. There's a few thoughts on this. Some people say they're not falling behind, but now it's being exposed, right? Do you know how many men's success has been fueled by some invisible woman or some invisible group of women, okay? 70% of Baptist church pastors, that church full of women, keeps them doors open, ushering at those doors, cooking the chicken dinners, coordinating the banquets and the fundraisers, all the things.
I need people to truly understand how much erasure has happened over the course of civilization in terms of women's contribution. How it's not just erased, but a lot of times it's been stolen. When you think about famous philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, you can go down the list. You want to tell me that in the history of ever, there was never a woman with a thought so profound that it deserved to be written down and written for the annals of history to be recognized? That's what you want me to believe? Furthermore, when you think of famous composers, who do you think of? Bach,
Mozart,
Tchaikovsky,
Beethoven.
Chopin. Exactly. We don't think about women at all. So you want me to believe in the history of ever that there was never a female composer, prodigy level, that has created a body of work worthy of being...
Preach. Acknowledged, reverenced.
Exactly. And the list goes on. Composer, not just... any field you want to choose.
Science, medicine, innovation, invention.
There is a
Hidden Figures is a real thing.
There is a rumor that Albert Einstein's wife is the one that came up with the theory of relativity. And one of the things that lends credence to that rumor being true is after she passed, he never had another Pulitzer Prize winning, life-changing theory ever again. And you could say, well, her death impacted him so greatly that his brain stopped working and so did his genius. Child, good night.
Hello.
Okay, we're not doing rapid fire in this because I created questions and I was just so geeked about you being here. So I'm just going to throw some stuff out there.
Okay.
I read something recently that said, the less healthy the personality, the less flexible it is. So very healthy people have extraordinarily flexible personalities. A mentally healthy person has a lot of flexibility in their psyche. Adaptability, self-awareness, awareness of others, the ability to engage in novel problem solving and not get stuck on a singular solution, the capacity to be able to self-regulate and to self-soothe when faced with disappointments, and a capacity to cope exists. This is what a healthy mind looks like.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
I don't know what the question is here. I just wanted to read that to you because I found that to be so profound, and I guess wanted to get your thoughts on what you thought.
If we have to wrap it up and kind of boil it down, right? Here's the bread and butter of all that we've discussed. People who are suffering, because let's just call it what it is. People are suffering. People are suffering in loneliness. People are suffering and being abused and indoctrinated with rhetoric that really serves a single purpose, which is to dissolve healthy human connection, right? If you are suffering and you are stuck, you really have to do a detox, okay? A little bit of rehabilitation, because here's the thing, social media is addictive. Okay, there are tech bros that will tell you we have intentionally brain hacked and manipulated the dopamine to give you certain things that will keep you coming back to this platform. And so this intentional manipulation, if you are willing to step away from it and step out of your suffering and get back into developing the muscle of healthy human connection, it dulls the impact of this scrolling, which only increases isolation, increases loneliness, and compounds suffering. Put the phone down. Put the phone down.
I think that we are the last generation that can recognize when we're doom scrolling and that we should put the phone down. Yeah. We know what we're doing is bad for us.
Yep.
And we just revert back to a time
to our Etch-a-Sketch days.
Exactly. To our Etch-a-Sketch days, to where we lived in the moment and we weren't thinking about anything else or preoccupied with other people's lives and whatnot. I think that we are the last generation that actively knows how to do that when we are doing something that's very self-destructive. Yep. And we need to stop.
Yep.
Which terrifies me for the generations after us and the ones that are still to come, because it is
It's
terrifying.
crippling.
It is
It's
crippling.
crippling.
That's a perfect world. Dr. Shante Hawley, you don't understand how much this episode fed my spirit and my soul.
Me too.
It really did. I am
too.
so grateful that you were able to make this stop while you came to New York to spend some time with me. I think that the audience is really going to benefit from this conversation that we've had. I think we've been talking for like over 2 hours.
Oh my
I could
gosh.
talk to you for the next 5. You are fascinating. You are wonderful. You are just incredible. And I am, again, so grateful that you were able to come by. And this is not the first time we are going to talk.
I was going to say, I am happy to come back.
I will go to Chicago.
Hey.
Do not threaten me with a good time, because this was a
Listen.
great time for me.
This is a great time, and Chicago's a great city. We would love to have you.
It is such a great city. It is. I was just at Alinea. Girl. Yeah, okay. Well, that's a whole other conversation.
It
We have
is.
to gab
Okay.
after this. That is it for today's episode of Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford. And just remember, life is lived in the in-between, and that is usually where it is the hottest. Until next time, remember to like and subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so you know when another episode has dropped. And again, until next time, take care. Thank you for tuning into Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford. Please rate, subscribe, and comment, and share wherever you get your favorite podcasts. This season of Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford is hosted, written, and executive produced by me for Forged Path Productions. This season was written and produced by Sebastian Godin, filming and editing done by GVI Films, Freddie Chica, Nicole Benante, the Bassi Group, and Emmanuel Martinez, and executive produced by Rachel DeSalvo.